The Wyoming sun beat down hard on the dusty main street of Clearwater, turning the dirt into a glare bright enough to sting the eyes. It was 1878, and the frontier didn't care who you were. It could break a man or a woman without blinking. Horses snorted near the hitching rails, and the heat shimmered off the roofs as if the whole town was holding its breath. Bo Edison stood at the edge of a growing crowd outside Murphy's saloon. His hat was pulled low, shadowing the lines on his face. At 32, he looked older than his years, and the limp in his left leg spoke of a past he didn't talk about. The war had taken too much from him, and the frontier had taken the rest. Now he lived quietly on a small ranch 5 miles outside town, keeping to himself, fixing fences, tending cattle, and avoiding trouble whenever he could. But today trouble found him anyway. He hadn't come to town for this. He'd come for flour, ammunition, and coffee. But the noise dragged him closer, and through shoulders and hats he saw her. A woman stood on a wooden crate, wrists bound, chin lifted. Her dark hair hung loose around her face, daring anyone to shame her for it. Her faded blue dress clung to her like a memory of better days, and her gray eyes swept over the crowd with a cold, sharp fire. They called her Tessa. Bo didn't know if that was her real name. Folks in the West often shed names like old skins when life got too heavy. But one thing was clear. She had spirit. More than anyone there deserved to witness. Murphy, the greasy saloon owner, strutted beside her like a rooster showing off. "Gentlemen," he called, "what we've got here is a rare opportunity. This here's Tessa. Untamed, unbroken, clever as a fox. Reads, writes, does numbers better than most of you. Just needs the right man to guide her." Tessa didn't flinch, though Bo saw the tightness in her jaw. Murphy went on, enjoying the attention. She tried to run 3 times, but for the right man she'd be a real asset. Starting bid at $50. Bo's stomach turned. It wasn't unusual in places like this. Women sold because there wasn't anyone left to protect them. But knowing it happened didn't make it right. Men started calling out numbers. Ranch hands with whiskey on their breath. Drifters looking for someone to push around. Bo knew most of them, and he didn't like what he saw on their faces. Then her eyes found his. Bo felt the jolt like a spark. Gray eyes, sharp as gunmetal, not pleading, not begging. Just watching him, studying him. Almost curious in a grim way, like she wanted to know whether he was another wolf in the pack. 75! Jake Rockefeller shouted. Bo knew him by reputation alone. Brutal, mean as a cornered badger, the kind of man who broke things just to see if they'd scream. 80! Another man hollered. 90. 100. 120. Bo's jaw tightened. His leg ached. His heart felt heavy. He should walk away. He didn't need this, didn't need anyone. He had a ranch to run, cattle to tend, and wounds inside him that never healed. Then Rockefeller's voice came again. 150! Tessa's fingers curled tight enough to turn her knuckles white. Still, her chin stayed high. Bo looked at her and felt something shift inside him, something he thought had died long ago. Then, before he even knew he was speaking, he heard his own voice cut through the crowd. 200! Heads snapped around. Even Murphy blinked in surprise. Bo Edison never raised his voice in town. He was known for being quiet, steady, and impossible to read. But now, the whole street stared at him. Rockefeller spat. 225. Bo stepped forward, limp more pronounced. His voice stayed calm. 300 cash. The crowd murmured. $300 was serious money. Tessa's gray eyes widened just a fraction, like she hadn't expected that from him, or anyone. Rockefeller cursed under his breath. He wasn't about to risk that much on a woman who might stab him in his sleep. "Sold!" Murphy shouted, almost dancing with joy. "To Mr. Bo Edison!" Tessa was unchained from the platform with Murphy still smirking. "You're getting trouble for that price," he warned. "She bites." Bo ignored him. "Unlock the chains." "Better keep them on," Murphy said. "Woman's a runner." Quote. "The key," Bo repeated, voice cold enough to freeze whiskey. Murphy handed it over. Bo knelt and unlocked the raw red wounds on her ankles. She didn't move, didn't run, just watched him. Then Murphy shoved a paper toward him. "Bill of sale, yours now, no returns." He laughed. Bo didn't. Instead, he struck a match, set the bill of sale on fire, and let it burn to ash in his hand. Murphy's jaw dropped. "What in blazes are you doing?" "Making it clear," Bo said. He turned to Tessa. "You're not property, never were. I've got work on my ranch. You help, you earn. You leave when you want. 300 is a loan, not a price." Tessa stared at him for several long seconds before finally speaking. "And if I say no?" "Then you walk away free." Bo shrugged. "Wouldn't be the worst loss I've taken." Something flickered in her eyes. Something tired, something stubborn, something that almost looked like trust trying to breathe again. "I can work," she said. "Good," Bo answered. He turned toward the general store, and after a quiet moment, he heard her footsteps behind him, steady but cautious. The long walk toward his wagon felt like the start of something neither of them had asked for, but both were already tied to. And none of Clearwater knew it yet, but this was the moment that would change everything. Some storms arrive without thunder. Some come quietly, settling into the corners of two lives before either person understands what is happening. For Bo and Tessa, the storm arrived in silence, in work shared side by side, in nights spent listening to the wind pass over Wildflower Ridge. But the West had a way of testing everything that dared to grow. The first weeks passed in a careful dance. Tessa kept to the small room in the back of the house and worked from dawn until her hands shook with exhaustion. She cooked breakfast without being asked, mucked stalls, chopped wood, tended the wilted vegetable patch, and repaired anything she found broken. She worked like someone terrified of being useless. Bo didn't push her. He didn't ask questions. He let her find her place at her own pace. One morning, he came into the kitchen and found a pair of his old leather gloves on the table. They'd been mended neatly, the stitching so precise it almost looked factory-made. "Found them in the barn," Tessa said, not looking up from where she was kneading dough. "Figured you shouldn't be ripping your hands open every day." Bo picked them up slowly. His chest tightened in a way he didn't expect. "Thank you," she shrugged. "Too much blood makes more work for me." But Bo saw the faint color rising in her cheeks, and he didn't miss the way she avoided meeting his eyes. That afternoon, dark clouds rolled in over the mountains. Bo was in the barn treating a calf's infected hoof when the storm finally broke. Rain hammered the roof so hard it echoed like gunfire. Thunder cracked across the sky in deep, rolling waves. He was heading for the house when he saw her. Tessa stood in the middle of the yard, face lifted to the sky, arms spread wide as the rain poured over her. The storm soaked through her dress in seconds, clinging to her frame, washing the dust and tightness from her features. Her hair fell down her back in a long, dark river. For the first time since he had met her, she looked free. Bo stopped in the barn doorway, unable to move, his breath caught somewhere between awe and worry. She looked like a woman letting go of something heavy, something that had weighed her down for years. Then she opened her eyes and saw him watching. She froze. For a heartbeat, they stared at each other through the sheet of rain. Then she bolted toward the house like a frightened deer. Bo didn't follow. If she needed space, he would give it. He stayed in the barn until the worst of the storm had passed, listening to the rain soften into a gentle patter. When he finally walked into the house, dinner was already on the stove. Tessa's hair was braided tightly, her face carefully blank. They ate without speaking of what he'd seen. But the next morning, something was different. She handed him his coffee and actually met his eyes. "Storm damage?" she asked. "Section of fence in the north pasture," Bo said. "Barn lost a few shingles. I can help." That was new. She'd never offered. She'd always just acted like help was expected. This time, she chose it. They worked side by side until afternoon. Tessa lifted fence rails with her small but strong hands, hammered nails without flinching, and moved with the efficiency of someone who had learned hard work young. When Bo's bad leg finally gave out and sent him stumbling, she caught him with surprising strength. "Old injury?" she asked. "Shiloh, Confederate grape shot." He steadied himself, leg never quite healed right. "You don't show weakness when you walk," she said. "Most men would. It marks you as prey out here." "Yes, it does." There was understanding in her voice, and something else, respect. That evening, Bo left a small package outside her door. Inside were the boots he'd bought her on that first day. In the morning, she wore them to breakfast. The toes were stuffed with cloth to help them fit, but she stood straighter because of them. "Good boots," she said quietly. "Consider them part of your wages," Bo replied. She nodded, accepting his words, though both of them knew they were just a layer over something deeper. As days passed, small signs grew like seeds pushing through soil. Tessa hummed while she cooked. Bo found fresh-cut wildflowers on the kitchen table every few days. Books he left out would disappear and then reappear, with new little pressed flowers tucked inside. He pressed each one carefully into his father's Bible. Then, one afternoon, trouble arrived. 3 riders appeared on the ridge, Jake Rockefeller and 2 hired hands. They rode into the yard without invitation, staying mounted, boots resting high in their stirrups, like kings surveying land they thought they owned. Bo stepped out of the barn, hammer in hand. "Edison," Rockefeller called. "Heard you got yourself a wild one. Figured I'd come see how she settled." "You've seen enough," Bo said. "Turn around." "Where is she anyway?" One of the men laughed. "Ain't like her to hide." A voice cut through the yard like a knife. "I don't hide." Quote, Tessa stepped out from behind the house, chin lifted in that fierce angle Bo recognized. She held a pitchfork loose in her hand, like she'd been born with it. Rockefeller sneered. "Look at you, all dressed proper. Edison teaching you manners?" "No," Tessa said calmly. "I learned those myself." The men laughed. She shifted her grip on the pitchfork. "Funny thing, though, you 3 grown men came all this way just to look at a woman doing honest work. Must be a slow day." Rockefeller's eyes narrowed. "Watch that mouth." "Or what?" she asked. "You gonna bid on me again?" Silence snapped tight as a lasso. Bo stepped closer. The hammer in his hand wasn't raised, but it didn't need to be. "Leave," he said. Rockefeller glared at him. "This ain't over." He turned his horse sharply and rode away, his men following. When they were finally gone, Tessa's hands began to shake. Bo watched her set the pitchfork down slowly, her shoulders tense with the weight of fear she refused to show. "They'll be back," she said softly. "Probably. I brought trouble to your door." Quote, Bo reached out and took the pitchfork from her hands, gently, as if taking a burden she didn't have to carry alone. "Trouble was already here," he said, "but you didn't run." She looked at him then, really looked at him, and something opened between them, something fragile, something new, something that felt like breath after drowning. "No," she said quietly, "not this time." That night she baked apple pie. They ate it on the porch as the sun went down and the sky turned gold. The silence between them felt different now, warm, waiting. And neither of them knew it yet, but the danger that had come to Wildflower Ridge wasn't done with them. Not by a long shot. Danger in the West never arrives politely. It comes in the dark, in silence, in footsteps you don't hear until they're too close. For Tessa and Bo, it came 3 nights after Rockefeller's visit, carried on the wind like a warning. Bo woke to Churchill's frantic whinnying and the sharp, bitter smell of smoke. He grabbed his rifle and bolted out the door. Flames roared from the barn, lighting the night like a signal fire. "Tessa!" he shouted. "I'm here!" she answered, appearing from the side of the house with a bucket in her hands. She was barefoot, hair loose, nightdress clinging to her from sweat and smoke. Even now she moved with purpose. "The horses!" she yelled. Bo smashed open stall doors while Tessa led terrified animals out into the yard. Smoke burned their eyes. Heat bit at their skin. Sparks flew like angry fireflies. They saved every animal except one, a young gelding named Grant, trapped behind a fallen beam. As Bo moved toward the stall, A gunshot cracked through the night. Tessa cried out and fell to one knee, clutching her arm. Blood dripped down her sleeve. Bo spun toward the gunman. Jake, Rockefeller. Two men flanked him, rifles raised, firelight twisting their faces into something cruel. "Well now," Rockefeller drawled, "ain't this a pretty sight? Barn burning, woman bleeding, and you two standing out here without cover." Bo stepped in front of Tessa, rifle ready. "You made a mistake." "Don't think so," Rockefeller smirked. "Should have sold her, Edison. Women like her bring trouble." "She's not yours to talk about," Bo growled. "She ain't yours either," Rockefeller snapped. "She's wild stock. Should have been broken, not bought." Behind Bo, Tessa forced herself up, gripping her arm but lifting her chin. "I'm not property." Rockefeller laughed. "Not yet, but once Edison's gone." The rush of wings sliced through the air. Napoleon, the rooster, came charging out of the smoke like a feathered demon. He launched himself straight at one of the gunmen's faces, claws raking, beak striking. The man screamed and dropped his rifle. Bo didn't hesitate. His shot nailed the second man in the shoulder, spinning him to the dirt. He levered another round. "Tessa," he shouted. She had grabbed the fallen rifle and aimed it steadily, despite her bleeding arm. Her stance was firm. Her eyes were cold fire. "Drop your weapon, Jake." Rockefeller froze, reading her face, seeing she meant every word. Then more hooves thundered into the yard. Bill Carnegie and 3 ranch hands galloped in, rifles raised. They had seen the flames and come running. Rockefeller cursed. "Trapped." "This ain't over?" he snarled, backing away. "Yes," Bo said coldly, "it is." Carnegie's men escorted Rockefeller and his wounded crew away, straight to the sheriff. When the yard was quiet except for the dying crackle of the barn, Bo rushed to Tessa. "Let me see." "It's just a graze," she muttered, shaky but strong. Bo cleaned and wrapped the wound with gentle hands. She watched him, eyes soft in the firelight. "You would have let them kill you," she whispered. "To protect me." "Yes." "Why?" Bo tied the bandage tight and looked up at her. His voice was low, steady, true. "Because some people are worth dying for." Her eyes softened. "But the barn, your father built it." "Barns can be rebuilt," Bo said. "Horses can be replaced. You can't." She inhaled sharply, a sound full of emotion she didn't have words for. She looked at the charred skeleton of the barn, then back at him. "I was going to plant morning glories along the wall," she said quietly. "Then we'll build a stronger wall," Bo replied, "and we'll plant twice as many." Quote, "For the first time, she didn't hide her smile. It lit her face like sunrise. Napoleon strutted between them and crowed proudly. Even injured, Tessa laughed. "He saved us." "Brave little soldier," Bo agreed. "Give him extra corn tomorrow." They sat together until dawn, watching the fire die down, their shoulders touching. The danger had been real, the fear had been real, but the bond between them was stronger. The next weeks changed everything. They rebuilt the barn with help from neighbors. They tracked down the surveyors who sneaked onto the eastern edge of Bo's land. They uncovered a scheme by false bankers working for a copper company trying to steal Wildflower Ridge. Tessa, with her sharp mind and steady hands, saw everything the company tried to hide. She read their forged documents. She exposed their tricks. She fought them with words and truth, while Bo stood beside her with steel in his spine. Together, they won. The copper thieves were arrested. The sheriff cleared Bo's land, and the newspapers printed the story of a rancher and a woman who refused to be bullied by powerful men. But peace didn't arrive right away. Not for Tessa. The nightmares came harder. Old memories clawed at her sleep. She woke gasping, shaking, drowning in things she tried to bury. Bo never pushed her. He never demanded more than she could give. He sat with her through the nights, brought her water, held her hand when she let him. One night, she broke. "You don't know what you're choosing," she whispered. "I'm broken, Bo." He brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Everyone is broken. Some just hide it better. "I'm afraid," she said, voice cracking, "of losing this, of losing you." He pulled her close, his voice warm against her ear. "Sleep later." She leaned into him, breath trembling. He tilted her chin gently, eyes searching hers with a softness that made her heart race. "You're safe," he whispered. Then he kissed her deep, slow, full of every promise he didn't know how to speak. When dawn came, she was still in his arms, and for the first time in her life, she didn't feel like running. Days turned into weeks, pain turned into trust, fear turned into something deeper, something steady, something strong enough to weather the worst the West could throw at them. And when Bo finally asked her to stay, not out of debt, not out of safety, but out of love, Tessa didn't hesitate. She chose him. She chose Wildflower Ridge. She chose the life neither of them had believed they could ever have. Tessa planted morning glories on the new barn wall, and every morning Bo stood beside her, watching them climb higher. Two broken souls had found home in each other, and together they became something unbreakable,